The saying goes, sticks and stones may break your bones. The saying goes, words can never hurt you. But I want to talk about the density of language, or how reality can be obscured by a sentence, or how a sentence can be obscured by the color of your skin. Do you see how easy it is to manipulate humanity? I want to talk about foundations. 39 people gathered to codify the United States. 11 of those 39 people owned slaves. What happens when we call them founding fathers instead of colonizers? I want to talk about shifting trends in representation and the cost to indigenous people who still protect the land. I want to talk about the emotional impact of Black trauma in media, but the rent is due, and Black Lives Matter is trending again. I want to talk about traditions, how much we focus on the minstrel show performance, but not the people who tarred themselves and took the stage and wrote the script and filled the stands. Do you see how dangerous it is to disappear wrongdoing when those in control of the narrative don't have to take responsibility for their actions? For example, you say transatlantic slave trade, you say triangular, and immediately the mind starts focusing on the directions of the boats and not the stolen histories decaying below the deck. See how quickly the water runs red. Unnaming is a process of manipulation. For example, if I call a human a prisoner, immediately you stop questioning the legitimacy of the cage. Hocus pocus. Poof goes contact with the outside world. What happens when we call the Women's March a protest, and the protest a riot, and the riot a lawless place? Do you see how the sex worker goes missing in the space between legislation and false morality? Do you see Black trans women leading movements and being snatched from the face of them? What happens when grieving Black folks are labeled looters, when mobs of white people are not labeled patriots, even though they are doing the most American thing? When we call it police brutality instead of genocide, when we call them accusers instead of survivors, when patriarchy makes itself small enough to sit between your teeth, what happens? When words like revolution and abolition are more forbidden than words like lethal injection or life without the possibility. And maybe this is just all what happens when we've decided the truth is too large to fit in our mouths. And maybe it's less about who's at the table, but more about questioning why the table exists. And I don't have the answers, but I invite you to a moment of reflection, to interrogate assumptions you've digested without flinching, manufactured lies you've repeated without blinking. I invite you to imagine a reality, a moment, a space where oppressed people don't ask for permission, don't dress up in palatable renditions of themselves, and still have all the resources needed to tell their own stories, to call things by their proper names.